So today will be the last economics session before the midterm. After midterm, we still have 3, but that 3 will be about finance, real estate finance for sustainable real estate. Today is about policy, and so basically today I will talk about policy, how at first may not be possible for sustainable real estate, and then with the policy intervention, you will see that become possible. So we call it policy as a game changer. So at first, maybe, so I will give you this way to understand. So basically, recall that when in the introduction session, we put these three bottom lines, PPP, right? 3 bottom lines of the sustainable real estate. We mentioned that, of course, we want to do good things for the environment, so that's a reduce carbon emission and other things. And then we also want to do good things for the people, society, for example, healthy buildings, for example, productivity and happiness, like that. And then we also, from this classroom, we are real estate, so we are like private sector, we really need to do the profit. So if no profit, very hard to sustain. So that's, we have the 3 bottom lines. Then remember when I first talked about this, they have an intersection. They have an intersection. I say, okay, in the middle of the intersection, that's our solution, because you can balance all 3 PPP. But that's a dream. Sometimes it's a dream. It's very hard to get the intersection of the 3 bottom lines. So then the market may not always work. So we call it market failures. Then if there are market failures, and we have 3 bubbles, will diverge. Then if you diverge, so basically then you have no intersection. If you want to go to planet, no profit. Go to people, no profit, like that. So we already covered 2 of the market failures. Today is the 3rd one. So so a quick recap of the first 2. Information asymmetry. Yesterday, Akrish already covered this. Information asymmetry. So that means you have no information. You have no knowledge of green buildings benefit, cost. You have no information which building is a green building. So then the developer just do greenwashing and then just sell you the fake green buildings, and then this market will collapse. So that's the first thing. Then that's why we need the certificate, LEED, WELL, all the certificate to provide information. Second is split incentive. So that one is about landlord versus tenant relationship, remember? So, and also yesterday covered in the recitation, split incentive means the tenants, if there's a triple net lease, then the landlord won't have the incentive to retrofit the building because they cannot recoup the benefit because because the tenants pay the energy bills. So, and the tenants also doesn't care about this building because the tenants only in this building for 5 or 10 years, so that cannot work. Then a solution to this will be a green lease. A green lease to better arrange, to better share the responsibility and also share the benefit and cost of this energy efficiency. And today, we already talked to, then today we'll cover the last one that makes these 3 bubbles diverge, which is the externality. And do you understand externality? This, at least the concept. So who already started or heard of the externality concept? Could you raise your hands? Who have already started this? Okay, good. So you have basic understanding. Then we know for the externality, first we look at, because it's 2 types, positive and negative. We first look at positive. So think about this. This is the idea. So think about green buildings versus brown buildings. Remember, we always say apple to apple comparison, then we have LS equal. One is green building, the other is brown building. So green building is good. Green building will generate a lot of positive externality. So this word means this is something good, and the providers, they generate those things by developing a green building, but they cannot really get the benefit, the entire benefit of the green building, because they generate a lot of benefits to the society instead of to this builder or this developer himself. The very good example is the carbon emission, right? Carbon emission, climate warming is global warming is a global thing. Then all people are emitting CO2 to the atmosphere, then cause global warming. And then green building is good because it reduces the carbon emission. However, you contribute to the entire globe instead of yourself, right? So you cannot get all the benefit of this. You cannot say, oh, because I reduce carbon emission, then I get benefit of how many dollars. You cannot. You just reduce the carbon emission, you will do good things for the society here. But this cannot get into your profit because there's no market, no very mature market for carbon. So this will be called positive externality. So think about the balance. Remember we have the balance to think about benefit cost analysis. So the point here is the following. If you build a green building, for example, your cost is like this big. And then you do get some benefit back, like this is a benefit. For example, your energy bill will reduce because you will save energy like that. Your bills, energy bills will reduce and you will get some reputation, all the things good. But you have one thing that you cannot get the monetary return, which your carbon emission. This is carbon. You reduce the carbon, reduced carbon. So this is your internal benefit. This is the external benefit you generated, but you couldn't get into your monetary return. So that's positive externality. So if you have this, remember, then you will compare benefit and cost. You will say, okay, if I'm selfish, if I'm so selfish, I won't consider this because I cannot recoup this. I compare benefit and cost, then I have so much cost, not so much benefit. I'm not going to do this. So that will lead to an undersupply of this social good, beneficial goods to the society. And then the key thing for the policy, why we say it's a policy, it's a game changer, is to internalize. Okay, we really need the individuals, these decentralized decision makers as developers, to internalize the benefit to society to themselves as money, and then they compare these two things. They will say, okay, now I understand this benefit, I can really enjoy that I'm going to do this. So that's the thing of the externality. This individual won't consider, then the policy will move this external benefit to internal private benefit, then make the market start to work. At first, the stock market won't work. So that's the thing. If this positive, we always say this Pigouin subsidy, or kind of anyway, it's a subsidy. It's an incentive. It's a good thing that you can get more benefit. And to incentivize these individuals, then in reality, there's many types of the subsidies like tax rebates and the subsidy, direct subsidy money, and other, not exactly say you give you money, but will change to your financial return. So if this product has positive externality, then the policymakers will have the responsibility if they want to move this external thing into internal benefit. They will give carrots. We call it carrots. So that's why I went to Whole Foods and I got some carrots today. I went to Trader Joe, but I couldn't get. So that's why I have this. So that's our carrots, so that you remember this is carrots. And then if this positive externality, we need to give carrots. The thing is the following. I want you to understand the basic economics of carrots. So for example, now we are still thinking about green building. The green building will be positive thing. Then, however, unfortunately, first, before the carrots, no carrots, then the these demand sides, they only consider the private benefit. For example, it's good for reducing energy bills, etc. That's called private benefit, right? This is private benefit. Only consider reducing energy bills. However, there's another social benefit. Social benefit is reducing carbon emission, right? That's good for the society, but you cannot just change it to money. And then if you are so selfishless, you're socialist, you're selfishless, you consider the entire planet, then the demand of the green buildings should be like this. This is the demand curve. So, right, you move up the demand curve because you consider the entire society. But not everyone like that. It's very hard to expect all the individuals in the market, they consider those so selfishness. Then we need policy as a way to achieve this goal, because this at first, if you don't consider this, you have undersupply and market equilibrium, this lower quantity of the green buildings, right? So actually the social optimum point should be here. You should have more green buildings instead of this Q prime. It's a Q star. This is optimal for the society. We need so much green buildings, but unfortunately, when people are relatively selfish, you only have Q prime. And then we need to change. How can we reach that social optimal point? Is to give the carrots. The carrots, later I will show you other ways to move this to here. And for example, you directly give subsidy to households when they buy green buildings. That's one way. But then it's another way is to shift down the supply curve. That also works. Anyway, our point is to reach this Q, right? This optimal Q. And then you should give subsidy to the suppliers. Think about the developers. The developers are so hesitant to supply green buildings because all the demand side, they are selfish. They don't want to pay. They have no willingness to pay. Then we give them some bonus, like FAR bonus. You can build taller buildings, then you have more units to sell. Or if you build green buildings, the government give you tax credit or tax rebate. No matter anyway, then that's this carrots. So that is the carrots. So that, okay, we achieve this. Now we achieve this with a game changer. So that's the idea of the carrots. Okay, another thing is, now we think a bad thing. A bad thing may be a brown building, or we can think about like a factory. Very dirty factory always emit a lot of pollutants to the air. So that's a bad thing, right? Now we think about bad thing. The bad thing is the following. This is a brown building. Now we think bad thing, right? So the thing is, think about this. At first, the developers, they don't care. I just build buildings if I can sell out the buildings. I built a lot of buildings. I don't care the actual damage I create for the planet. My actual damage created the negative thing is more carbon emission. That's because you build a lot of brown buildings, you don't care. You build a lot of dirty buildings, then you emit more carbon into the air, which was bad. But I think I'm selfish. I don't care. I will just build. So at first, you only consider your private cost, which is your materials and all the things, then you build. You say, okay, if people want to buy, I will just build. However, you have a much higher social cost because you build a lot of so dirty buildings, you emit a lot. Actually, your cost should be higher if you consider the planet, right? So the thing is, if you don't consider you're selfish, you build a lot of brown buildings, but if you are selfishness, you should build less because you have a higher social cost. So that will Q star here. So, but however, only with the market, it's very hard. It's very hard to achieve this because everyone just want to make profit. So we need market changer. That's we call sticks. Then I have a sticks, not from Trader Joe, but just from our yard. So this is this. So this is a stick. So stick means, okay, you are doing bad things. I must let you put the burden on you so that you will not do that. So that's a tax. Carbon tax, okay, you are selfish, okay? You don't consider the things you hurt the environment. Now I'm moving up artificially. I charge tax to you. If you do things, you will pay carbon tax or penalty like Local Law 97 like this. So that is a stick. Immediately move up the cost. Then they will build less of the brown buildings, or they will take action to retrofit their brown buildings into green buildings. So that's basically today's point, is this. And this is very small, this is very big. But anyway, so this is the carrot and the sticks. Any questions till now? Okay. This is very abstract. That's why I put here. But later I will give more examples of the carrots and sticks. And later, this is our common language, okay, in the classroom between us. After you graduate and then we say the reunion, we will talk about carrots and sticks. You will tell me in your market, if you later become developer, you will tell me whether you think you have enough carrots or too much sticks. Because we are developers, remember? Maybe some of you will become policy makers. If you are policy makers, you need to design this kind of thing. It's too big. Then you kill the market. Nobody wants to do things too big. Then you say, oh, cut. To the extent that you can still make the market work, but you want to achieve this Q. Or you say, okay, this carrot's too small. Then I have this too small. Nobody wants to do. Then I add on incentives to get more carrots. So later when you go to work, if you're policymakers, you design the size of this and the size of this. And if you are developers, no problem. You can complain. It's too much, too little, and then you can lobby the policymakers, right? That's how this works. Okay. So then this is a table. Yesterday, actually, I previewed this table. That's our four baskets of the carrots and the sticks. So we have the sticks. The formal name is enforcement. And the carrots, the formal name is incentive. And then we also have the mitigation and adaptation side so that you have like better understanding of this. So think about we talked climate. This carbon is a very, very good example of the negative externality, or you reduce carbon is positive externality. So we use mitigation. Mitigation means you reduce your carbon emission, right? Like decarbonizing buildings. PSAT number one. PSAT 1 is about mitigation. How you retrofit your building and then you reduce carbon. Then the government says, okay, I understand you are very hesitant to do so, and you resist. For example, Boston Properties, they don't want to do anything. And then they impose sticks and carrots. Another thing, PSAT 2, remember our hedonic regression. I know tomorrow is a due date. Today or tomorrow is a due date. So that is to understand adaptation. So you understand, okay, if we have houses, buildings in the flood zone, bad. And then later we'll get flooded. So we need to take action to adapt to that. Then you have sticks and carrots. So that's and the building codes is in the middle. You have building codes, you can say, okay, the building code say your building energy level must reach what? That's a building code. Then that's mitigation, adaptation. If you are in the flood zone, you must elevate your ground floor to what high level. So that's also building code. Building code is like minimum. It's like you must achieve this. So that can be used mitigation or adaptation both. Okay, so now I'm doing this. So first, look at carrots. So when you look at carrots, you will find that green building policies, so many green building policies in different cities. It's from the states, from the countries, from the federal level to the state level to the county level to the municipality level. So many policies, and you see so many, and the different states have different things. That's a way. There's a policy monitor green buildings economic policies, and I think our TA Sanjana is now doing a policy tracker. It's a similar idea. It's because these policies, these two different types of the carrots or sticks, is totally different, and they are narratives. It's very hard to quantify. So Sanjana is now doing a project as a policy tracker of this building decarbonization, and different local municipalities and even different countries, and to measure that policy. So that's the idea. Now, carrot number one. Carrot number one. Any questions here? Why are you so happy? I don't think you need this. And if you answer questions well, I will give you this. But I don't think you need this. Okay, question.
Yeah. Like I just think it's like the concept is simple of the economics on where to set the price, but it's like how do you get to the social optimum? Because that is a very delicate concept. I mean, it could result in the housing for the city if you put like a lot of costs for
you mean it's very hard to achieve that social optimum
so
point?
How do you define the social optimum?
We can define that in a theoretical way, but in reality, it's very hard, right? We understand. I think for economists, they understand which one is which. Like social should be higher or lower than the market equilibrium. That's quantitative way. But you calculate exactly the number here is very hard. And also, sometimes the policy makers, they are not so smart. They understand this, they design policy, but the problem is, let me see. For example, they design the policy, but the problem is they estimate some sophisticated models, but they make a lot of assumptions. And people's behavior response to those policies may not be the same as these policymakers. So then we call it unintended consequences. You impose a policy, and you assume that people will respond, and actually people will not respond in that way. Then you have other side effect of the policy. But in theory, there should be a social optimum if you really can capture and estimate all the social cost. Now I start from this carrot. This is a big thing. I don't know why the EU is so rich. I feel EU is very rich, so I really want to move to the Europe. So the point is they are very rich, and then they have a lot of money, and then they commit to endow this amount of money, 672 billion money, agreed, the European Council agreed, use this money and to subsidize the building renovations. So they call it the renovation wave. They have an ambitious goal, say 2030 all renovated. And then if you decide to renovate your buildings, you apply for funding, then the EU will give you funding. So that's a big carrot. I don't think the US has this. Maybe US in some area has, but it's very, very big thing now in EU that if you retrofit, then you get money from the EU. And then this is, the good thing is the following. This is EU money, right? This is all you get. And then because of this, the private sector, like the banks and some financial institutions add on. So then they say, okay, if you go to the EU, get money, then we will match with some private financial tools, then you have more money. So that's a good thing. Okay, now we move on to another carrot. It's a narrow carrot. So that's for Massachusetts. So here. So Massachusetts, basically, if you go to the massive website, you will see if you're residential, if you're a homeowner, or you are a small business or big business, no matter what. And then if you are a nonprofit like that, you hit on these things, you will find many, many small and big and medium-sized carrots like that. And we already mentioned this example. This is a heat pump, right? Heat pump installation. For the heat pump, because thanks to Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, then you can have more this subsidy if you install a heat pump. So, question: I'm not sure how many of you are homeowners or tenants are, or you already used this. Anyone? I know you have used. Okay.
I'm a renter, but I used Mass Save to do some energy efficiency around my house, which was safe or free, not free.
Yeah, you first did an energy audit, and they will do an energy audit, say, oh, this building is so old, and you need to change this, and change your insulation, and then you, okay, how much money you got, and whether you are happy with that.
They just gave me a bunch of free stuff.
Yes, okay, all free, so you don't need to spend money.
Yes,
They will come and give you things. Okay, see, this is good. And even this is not only for homeowners, it's tenants also eligible. Who else? Now we only have 2 people in this room, so this is for you. Free stuff, okay, good. Who else? Who else? No, nobody. Okay, we need to learn more, so we need to educate more. Actually, we are doing a research project now. On this, after today's class, I'm going to go to the MIT Energy Initiative to present our work. Is actually exactly this. That's our ongoing work, ongoing research. Again, if you are interested, talk to me. Is the following. We know that for Massachusetts, this heat pump, like $10,000, you can get subsidy, carrot. But the installation, the adoption rate is still very low. We want to understand the puzzle of this. Oh, free money, but why? Still installation. How can we accelerate this? We may need more carols. So that's another more. So the thing is, sometimes you cannot just give money, but you need some mechanism. For this thing, we found out actually this 10,000 is enough to cover this machine, but it's not enough to cover all the installation, right? You have workers, you have all the things, then it's not enough. And then the people, they don't understand. Common people, we don't understand knowledge. So this is education, information, all the things. Okay, let's think about carrots. So just now I mentioned this. So game changer. This conceptual level pro forma, conceptual level cash flow diagram is so important. So at first, the green retrofit won't work. The green retrofit is too expensive, like presidential center, for example, too dirty building. Then if you want to retrofit, a huge investment is needed to do the deep retrofit. And then nobody wants to do. Now the game changer comes, say, okay, we will get subsidy, so then we will offset this upfront cost. So that's very clear. So then this one decrease, right? Because remember NPV is our decision-making tool. NPV must be positive, otherwise it doesn't make sense. And at first, this upfront cost is so big, and this is totally negative. And then, because of massive or some other like EU, then they give you subsidy. This one becomes smaller. Then this change NPV from negative to positive. So that's what we call game changer. At first, NPV negative, and now become NPV positive. At first, negative because too big. Then, because of policy, thanks to the carrot, then positive. And it's not like only give you a write a check to you. Oh, if you install this, write a check. If you do this, write a check. Sometimes it's not a check per se, but it will really have very big financial benefit. So that's another carrot, which is the density bonus. The density bonus, I think that's very easy to understand. So basically the same. If you build a green building, they have a standard, for example, LEED. They always need a standard. You cannot just self-report, say, I'm a green building. For example, this is Arlington, not our Arlington, Virginia. Then here. And LEED version, silver, gold, platinum. If you really meet the LEED silver, like you get a certificate, then you can get a bonus of 0.5 increase of the FAR. So all other buildings, 0.25 FAR, that is the cap. Now they lift the cap higher, then you get more. So I think that's let me see, yes. So that's a case thing. Oh, so sorry. They have a benchmark FAR. If you are silver, you get this increase. This is incremental. And then if you meet other priorities, I think you get another 0.5. So always you get this. For silver, you get 0.25 FAR increase, and gold 0.35, and platinum 0.50. So that's the big carrots. So this is not a check, but you can build more, which is so important, right? You can build more. And I remember, so question for this, if you are a policymaker, if you are in the building authority of this is Arlington town, and when you design this, when you later go to the town, city government, like Carol's role in the city hall. So how you are going to design? Do you think these numbers, they have a very scientific calculation or something? Why they came up with these numbers, 0.25, 0.35, 0.50? Do you think this is very scientific based?
I don't know if it's scientific based or not, but it probably should be, because if you're going to be increasing the FAR, it's going to use more energy. It's more space to heat and cool and things like that, and electricity usage. So you want to make sure that you're getting the benefit of them switching to LEED and things like that, and getting a benefit where there's less consumption.
Very good. So if you are city policymaker, what you are on your mind when you decide on this? You understand, if you know this, the developer, they don't want to build. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that also the embodied carbon would increase because you're building more.
Yeah, that's exactly,
So
yes.
operational and embodied.
Yes, embodied and operational carbon will both increase if you build taller. And other things? Please.
Will encourage the developer to build the green building.
Yeah, that's their purpose. But how you can really decide on the precisely that number to give them as a gift, this gift to you, please.
On top of the science Billy was talking about, you also have to think about the financial cost. So what's the cost of your additional building systems to hit these hurdles versus the FAR that you're granting? You know, you got to grant enough FAR or more to subsidize the cost of the added scale of your scope.
Okay, good. But I think that's you are from developer's perspective, right? Now I'm talking from the city's perspective, whether they are giving too much or whether they are giving little.
Understand what that cost is.
Okay,
They need to be
yes.
aware of it.
They need to understand whether the developer will respond or not. And for the city perspective, more from city perspective? Yeah, please.
Like, I think from the other side, if you look at it, let's say if you're jumping from 0.25 FAR to 0.50, in an office building, you're creating twice as much supply of office, platinum, and that would, in theory, not be created somewhere else because you're already creating it in that place, right? So, like, even if
You'll create more supply, maybe the rent will go down,
yeah,
are you
but
saying?
the supply is limited in a city for office. You can't build like whatever you want. So if you're already turning the 0.25 in that building into a 0.50, you're reducing what another developer somewhere else could build. Sure.
Okay, good. So very good. So that give you a sense of, it's not that easy actually. I think just now someone asked a question. It's not that easy to really design the optimal policy, optimal size of the carrot. It's very hard. And you need to consider both sides of the coin. First, as many of you said, you need to understand, is this enough? And whether this will really nudge the developers to respond in the way you want them to respond, right? Maybe too little, no response. And then you have some other things. If you increase the height, then you have carbon emission and you, like negative things. And for this FAR itself, on the other side, you need to see the social. This is like, oh, if you do this, the social benefit, that's a rationale. But you also have social costs related to this, right? Why the fundamental rationale of FAR limitation or zoning is you cannot build too much. If you build too much, you add a lot of burden to the city's system infrastructure. For example, traffic. You have all the tall buildings and traffic and all the things and all this infrastructure system. So when the design this, from the city mayor, I need to balance the social benefit of this, the social cost of this, right? Because I'm the city mayor. The social benefit will be more green buildings. The social cost will be taller buildings, more embodied carbon and operational energy use, and more traffic around that area, and this and that. So that's the point. And this density bonus is a carrot. So the point is, it's not a check per se, but it will increase your revenue for sure, because you build more, then you have more office space to rent out, right? So that will change. That will change the thing of this equation, make NPV negative to positive, then they respond if your carousel is big enough. So here is very interesting is our project we have been doing for more than 1 year together with Zhengzhen and Anchorage and another professor, Justin Steele, in our department, is the combination. This one is very interesting. The story is the following. This is a real project. We have a project that this Massachusetts Association of Home Builders, HB Rama. So every state has some similar association of the builders, especially the medium-sized and small-sized builders. They want to have a market power. They want to talk to the governor of the state. So they just gather together. They have this association. And then the Massachusetts, very, very aggressive, very progressive. Yes, so basically they said they want to reduce, they want to change the energy code. Energy code is a stick, remember? Energy code is a stick. So they say net zero. The governor said, we really want to achieve net zero very fast, very fast trajectory, go to net zero. They have a energy index called HERS energy score. Every building has a HERS. I'm not sure whether when you get the energy audit, they will tell you the HERS score of your building. And then they say, okay, now I mandate all the new constructions, new buildings, energy HERS score must decrease from 55 to 45 or 42. That's a big decrease. If you decrease to very low, then you become net zero. Now they are doing this step by step. At first, maybe not net zero, but they want to sharp decrease of the energy score of all the new construction of the housing units in Massachusetts. And then these home builders, they are very anxious and they are unhappy. They are saying, why? You cannot just think about this political goal of the net zero or to the society, to the planet, but you need to think about our cost, right? Because then it means must fully electrified, heat pump first, and the installation and the passive house, that all means cost increase. Then they say, okay, cost increase. We cannot do. You cannot just give us stick, and then you ask us to do as a mandate, and we will not do. If they will not do, that become a problem. Why? Because especially in Boston area, as you know, it's already limited housing supply. We don't have enough houses, especially for some areas with a lot of people. Not enough houses. Then if the builders all get upset, and they all step back, so we're not going to develop new houses. That will be a shortage of the supply. That will push up the housing affordability problem, right? No supply. Or they say, okay, we will supply. But since you only give us stick, now we are going to pass on this cost into the buyers or the tenants. We're not going to carry on this cost. If this induce an increase of cost of 5%, we will go to the price side, say 5% higher. Because we have power, because it's still limited housing supply. So then that will hurt the housing affordability, right? Then they came to us say, oh, although we have this intuition, but we don't know how to talk to governor. Governor wants us to show empirical evidence. We need an empirical evidence-based, so that we can talk to governor. So they came to us, all of us, and then say, okay, MIT, could you do a project? Could you do a research to quantify, if you go like in this way, what will be the added actual burden to the households in terms of the housing affordability? So that become our project called the balance between sustainability and affordability, right? You cannot every day say, oh, sustainability is so good, so we all go to green and net zero, but you need to think about affordability. Remember ESG. So we talk about this, ESG. Not everything is like benefit all three. Now, if you think, oh, we only consider E, then you heard social go up, social part go down. Housing affordability is a social thing, right? If this go up, this go down. How to balance these two? That's a question. So you need to design a good policy to balance. Then we start this project. We are almost done. We will go to Washington, D.C. early June to present. I think that will be a National Association of Home Builders, National Association of Home Builders, NAHB, yes. Massachusetts, because the governor is so progressive, right? So we are going to go this, and there's many states. Some are relatively not that progressive, some are progressive. We are going to present our research to let those policymakers understand this. Then we did an analysis of housing affordability. For example, we understand housing affordability is a share of the housing cost in household income. Have anyone have started this housing affordability thing? Do you know there's a threshold? If this share is above a threshold, that's like not affordable. And then you are eligible for some subsidy or some program from the government. Do you know that threshold?
30%.
Yes, 30%. I think you have this mixed income housing project class, right? 30%. They think is a share of this. If this about 30%, not affordable. And then the housing cost can break down into this is utility bill, of course, housing cost. And another thing, if the homeowners will be the monthly payment, like the mortgage and the tax and insurance, if the renters will be rent, and both renters and owners need to pay energy bill. So then we say, okay, if we go to net zero, this one will decrease, then this one will increase. But to what extent? What should be the elasticity of this? For many of you, you may understand this is a big thing. This is a majority of the thing. This may be a small thing, minor thing, right? But this one will decrease, and this one will increase if the developers pass on the cost to buyers and tenants. Then which one will dominate? And in which market will dominate? And for what kind of income group will dominate? That's totally empirical. Then we started. We get data. Of course, this research needs data, right? So we have data. This is Massachusetts. We got data from all households of the single family, of multifamily. Then we have income groups from the very poor to very rich. I think we have 20 groups, 20 income group. And then we started this. I think this is energy bill. This is an energy cost, energy bill cost. And then they have some insurance and tax cost. Then they have their mortgage income cost like that. And then the solid line for each category is before the change. The dashed line is after the change. So you will see, yes, utility costs decreased, but so little, invisible almost, right? So little change. However, the price may go up, so the dashed line is above. So then this is a 30% line. So you will see, of course, the poor people always are affordable, no matter what. Always affordable. They always need that, like a subsidy from the government. They're always very high because the income is so low. But the change will hurt those groups. See? This is group that will be hurt by this sustainability because at first they were below 30%. Then after the change, they jump above 30%. So we identify, oh, this group will be very vulnerable and from okay to not okay. So this is this multifamily. Multifamily, average income relatively lower. Okay, that's the point. So then we give suggestions. Question? You want another carrot? Go ahead.
I was just curious how the Home Builders Association feels about these findings, because they're the ones that wanted you to do this research.
Yeah. So yes, we will go there. We will go to DC to show this to. This is Massachusetts, but we will show to other states. So they want this, they want to show, right? So this will hurt because their argument from the beginning is you cannot just do stick. You need to couple with a carrot, right? If you couple with a carrot, you will reduce this part, right? Because then you give some subsidy or what kind of things, carrots to the developers, so they won't pass on so much to the buyers and the tenants. So that's a key thing. They combine, cannot do this, only this. So that's the thing. And then, however, this is politics. As last time, remember, at Golding came last session, he says sometimes it's not just the social issues, it's just the equity issues. Instead, mining is about politics. The politics will be very pushback from the policymakers, pushback. If you say, oh, write a check. If you do this, write a check to developers, very hard. So they may be more like acceptable, amendable to some ways of FAR, this kind of thing. Increase a little bit of FAR as a FAR bonus, and do some tax rebate, and or some like expedited permitting process. Others, like 2 years, you get a permit. No, then you can fast the permitting process. So that's some kind of, so zoning will be the best solution, we feel, zoning. Because the zoning will make sure they really start to build. If you don't build, then you cannot get the benefit. Okay, now I need to move on for other sticks. Other sticks. This stick is, I think many of us, we went to the New York City field trip with Carol's class, right? I was also there. We went to some buildings, and in every building, I try to find this. I try to find this, and remember, I also asked a question when we first stop at the Rockefeller Center. And then, because New York City said, you must put this in a very, very the entrance of your building to show this is mandate. You must show your energy rating. A good, B, C, D. So this is mandatory to put. That gives you pressure. If you are too dirty, you have D, right? Then when we were there together with Carol's, in every building I tried to find, in the last building, the architect building, the architect firm we visited, finally we found a D in a very corner place, not very easy to see place. And in another building in my hotel, I went there in Thursday night. And Thursday night, also a D here. And also behind a door, a place they posted there because they have to post. But they feel so embarrassed and to post a D. If they are A, of course, they put here. This one is very brave. And they put C there. But this is a stick, right? Make you lose face.
How do they get lead gold if they have such better engineering?
That's a good question. I don't know. Check this building. Okay. So I think New York is like very, very strict. Even lead, not good. C. Yeah. So we have the similar things. Boston has Berto, and Cambridge is Buto. They're very similar pronunciation, but they are a little different. So this is MIT. This is Cambridge, because we are in Cambridge, right? Cambridge also has this, lose face. So disclosure, mandatory. So this is, the Cambridge is a Buto. Buto said, it's very similar, it's Cambridge version of local law 97 under disclosure. You must disclose your energy. So this is our building now, we are here, building 9, total carbon emission intensity is 22.15, it's very small. And this one is a hidden library. Have you been there? The hidden library, very beautiful, right? The renovation. They did renovation in 2020, 2021 during the pandemic, and then they finished renovation. I strongly suggest you go there. I always went there when I feel stressed out. I go there and I stay there and I look at the Chelsea River. I feel good. So this is a very good library. The first floor, 24/7. All time you can go there to study. So lead gold, fit well, all the good things they have, and they have all the things as a role model on MIT campus for the green and the healthy building. And we already talked about this. As EC pushed, you use this for your PSAT 1, right? They push for all the listed company, big company to disclose scope 1, 2, 3. That's thing. So then this is this minimum energy efficiency. This is another stick. It's a huge stick. It's very thick stick, very strong stick in UK. The UK said, it's not like only ask you to lose face. No, not just losing face, but real action. If your energy standard so low, so dirty, you can no longer lease your properties until you make the renovation, make the energy rating better. So if you since this 2020 below E bad, stop leasing, out of the market. Andy.
Is there an enormous subsidy that goes along with this? Because otherwise you're just punishing all the renters in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's a good question. We need to check out. I don't know. I think they should have some carrot combined.
If you say to all landlords that you have a poor quality apartment, you can't rent it, all the prices in the market just went up.
Right. So it's very thick, right? You must have a small carrot together so that you can balance, and then you otherwise all the out, right? All the no. That's very similar to Massachusetts thing. So the key thing is very strict. If you under E, no rent, then rent is gone. No revenue. So that immediately become a game changer. Then you say, okay, I have no other choice. If I still want to be the landlord, I have to do this renovation to get out of this situation and get above E. So that's not a losing face thing. This is really totally cut your revenue, cut your cash flow. Okay. Now, local law 97 is a big stick. We already talked so much. I'm gonna skip this. And remember, another thing I really want to tell you is the following. Till now, I give you some examples of sticks and carrots. So you will find a very interesting thing is the government is not so stupid. When they look at the big developers, big real estate owners, commercial real estate, they use this because they are rich. They are on the Wall Street. They are the rich people that all we want to charge them. So use these sticks. For households, they use this. Because for common households, they use carrots. Oh, can you do this? Can you do this? If you do this, we will get a check. If you do that, we will give you a check. So that's the thing is to big guys, local law 97 stick, because they are rich, they're easy to target. And for households, especially medium and low income households, they do this because otherwise you will hurt this social thing. So that's always we found. Boston called Berdo, that's the same thing. I want to say that Boston is more aggressive than local law 97. Berdo, although local law 97 is very famous, but you can see Boston, 2050, 0. So which means really net zero 2050 for Boston. But local law 97 is not that case. I think local law 97 even they are not so aggressive to say all zero in 2050. Then we have Berto, right? Big guys, sticks, money, fine. Then penalty, change the game changer here. If you don't do anything, big penalty. So at first they may not want to do, now game changed. Cambridge, Buildo, similar pronunciation, Buildo, building energy use disclosure ordinance, same thing. But the difference is the following. I feel this is very interesting. I don't know the logic. I hope you can help me find out what's the reason. For local law 97, they have the real thing of the cap, right? For Boston, Berdo also cap. This is absolute numbers of the CO2 emission. But for Buildo, no, in relative term, they use 2018 to 2019 as a baseline. That's a baseline. no matter what, your building is very green or very dirty, no matter what. Look at your own building, yourself. 18 and 19 as a baseline. Then you start to reduce. 2025, 80% of your baseline, your own baseline. Then 72, 0. 2035, 0. More aggressive than Boston. So the aggressive index will be our own Cambridge. We are so proud. We rank number 1, top, and then Boston. And yeah, please.
Just curious, using this method, wouldn't it be unfair for building that has been renovated on that year?
Before that, before or after?
Like before, like just right on that year.
Yeah. Then what will happen? So unlucky, right? If you renovate before, then your benchmark is already very, very clean. Then you continue to reduce. This is a very good point. Do you think our building is lucky or unlucky? This is for you. This is a very good point. Because that's what our next slide. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I also have a question. What's the square footage requirement on this? Because I think Boston's was 20,000, right?
Yes. This one also big. But the exact thing I couldn't remember, but we can check. Also big buildings, not like single family. So now you say Cambridge, if you, unfortunately you are in Cambridge, like us, 2035, net zero. If you are in Boston, 2050, net zero. If you are in New York City, not net zero. Then look at MIT. Although MIT, we are like a non-profit organization. We are not like a for-profit organization. Unfortunately, we are also subject to this regulation. That makes the MIT has a sustainability office. I'm a good friend of them. They have a sustainability office. Julia Newman is a head, also a lecturer here in DASP. And they are so busy because of this. Carlos?
I have a question related with the last slide. Have you done or did Cambridge policymakers, whatever, did maybe a study before doing this law of the financing stage of all office, all assets, all real estate assets located in Cambridge that could be affected on the refinancing with the banks, given this emission?
Very aggressive, yeah.
Because all buildings will most likely won't achieve this, and they will most likely, maybe if they have to refinance in 2032, they won't get refinanced.
Yeah.
At a normal and fair rate, which will lead to defaults in a
Yeah.
very high rate, I imagine, no?
I don't think they have really done a very thorough research. That's because this is too rush to put on this, but the good thing is this has not been written into the law. This is almost there, but I think Boston is already implemented, and they have to do. This one is kind of in the final discussion thing, but I think they will pass in some other version. But I don't think because they met a lot of pushback about this. So now I'm gonna say that.
Sorry, just following up on that. Don't you think that policy is also gonna make affordable housing more expensive and?
I think they target at the big buildings, but if these apartments, yeah.
You're targeting old buildings and buildings that cannot really afford to become net zero, right? So it'll affect the low-income renters, but it will benefit whoever can pay for the buildings.
Yeah. If like big apartments, like that buildings, that will be in this category. Yeah. And maybe this also like median income on all the people, they have to pay much higher rent because they have to achieve this. This is, I feel, we don't understand this actually. And when I went to our MIT Sustainability Office, they also have a class to make a presentation, and they were all complaining about this because this make MIT sustainability people cannot sleep, cannot sleep at all. Then MIT is even more aggressive. Okay, MIT, of course, we need to show our commitment to the climate crisis. So we have a committee called 2026 Net Zero, MIT 2026 Net Zero Committee. And on that committee, we have a bunch of professors in that committee to help MIT how to achieve this. Now, our only way to achieve this is to buy credit, carbon credit, offset, right? Because you cannot immediately overnight to make all the MIT buildings into net zero. That's no chance for 2026. Only 3 years from now, how can we? And the only way for short term is to buy carbon offsets. But since we are MIT, we must study carbon offsets market very carefully and buy very credible offsets instead of random offsets, because there's a lot of critics on offsets, right? So then our goal is 2026, no matter what, we must achieve net zero even by buying carbon offsets. By 2050, MIT campus will be real net zero. So that's the goal. Look at these two buildings. One is building 9. The other is hidden library. Just now, Ern, you raised a very good point, right, about renovation. Unfortunately, this building is so unlucky. This building was renovated in 2015 or 2016, already relatively okay, great. Before I came to MIT, got renovated. That's why we put Sam Takli building on that name, because Sam Takli is a donor, gives money, then we renovated the building. And again, renovated building, now it's relatively stable because already renovated. Then hidden library, at first, this is carbon, right? 14, now 5. This was renovated 2020. So this is relatively lucky, this building, because renovated after the baseline year. This renovated before the baseline year. So according to this thing, building 9 need to do a lot, because building 9 is 2018, 2019, already after the renovation. Then you need to continue make our building greener and greener and greener to reduce. And then for hidden library, this one was very high because they renovate later, then they are less under pressure. Then we ourselves, we calculated this potential penalty for this building 9 and the hidden library. And we use this to show to the MIT Sustainability Office, say, if this got passed finally by the Cambridge City, then building 9 immediately pay penalty, because building 9 pay until 2050, 2035, then you are flat because always net zero. And hidden library at first safe, and then at some year start to pay penalty. So that's the thing is, this is a non-profit organization, right? It's not like building 9, then our department and me, as a Center for Real Estate, we need to pay. We don't need, for us, we don't need to worry. The MIT president would need to worry about this and how to pay. Then MIT said, okay, now we want to buy offset. The good thing is, although they are so aggressive, but they still have a condition relatively reasonable. Say, maybe they will accept offsets. So if you buy offsets, then you reduce your nominal carbon intensity. Then you can avoid penalty. Because if you ask people to buy offsets and then you still ask them to pay penalty, that's unfair, right? You buy offsets, you spend money, and then you still pay penalty. How can, then everyone need to pay penalty. So if this is a build cap, like this, net zero. And then this is MIT by offset. If MIT by offset, 0, no penalty. Safe, because offset. If Budo later said, no offset accepted, then at this moment, MIT need to pay penalty. So that's the point. Okay.
So how much do you have to pay for the offsets?
This is a messy market.
So it's ranging somewhere between $2 to $500. The topic of carbon credit is worth of one session. $2 to $500. So right now you can check the carbon credit online. I think it's like hovering around 2 to 3, but in European there's some high quality.
So the carbon offset market now is very messy, because there's no very clear regulation of that, and then you just plant some plants, you plant some wood, trees, then you can sell your carbon offset to others. Then there's a lot of questions regarding the credibility of the carbon offset. So MIT, we have so many professors who are studying carbon offset market. So we have this committee to make sure that we are going to buy the good offsets instead of the fake ones. But the entire market is very messy.
What does Cambridge propose they're going to do with the money from the fines? Are they going to set up like a climate fund or something? Like, what are they going to do with all that money?
I have no answer. Yeah, that's a very good point. So maybe, yes, I think this money they charge from the buildings, they must need this to address the climate crisis, right? So I don't know the answer. I think they will consider to use that for some subsidy to the building retrofit or something. Okay, the final stick will be energy codes. So I already talked about this. You know this energy codes thing. And then energy codes is an involvement over time. At first, figured out this is this is New York City. So they have different versions of the energy codes, and then they become more and more stringent, and they use that to address the mitigation and adaptation. So overall, for the commercial and the real estate, residential buildings, if you look at this, and you have some states variation, and some states they have very strict, like Boston, like Massachusetts, and some states they are not so stringent, and then you are much easier to build. So the developers, so because the developers will move, right? They will move. If some states make them development more and more difficult, they will move to those south states that are not that difficult. Okay, good. So then finally, I'm so happy that I still have some minutes to discuss another big thing from the government, which is this climate resiliency investment in coastal areas. So that will be not a small stick or small carrots. That will be a huge carrots that the government put in the coastal areas. But there will be very interesting, a lot of debates. So this is like, this part is a continuation from last session. We talked about some frontier topics about climate change. Remember? And this one is also very, very, very controversial now for how to invest and whether should we continue to invest in these climate vulnerable places. So the story is the following. The story is the following. Although we now more and more of us, we know that coastal areas are risky in terms of all the climate risks, for example, flooding and hurricane. But if you look at the population patterns, when you look at the population patterns in the United States, you will see Americans are still moving into high-risk zones for wildfire, drought, and hurricanes. So this is this is a blue and green color. They are the inward migration, and this yellow, brown is the outward migration. People are still moving to those areas with high risk of the climate disasters. And this red thin finger shows us more clearly there's a heat, drought, fire, flood, storm. And then these red bars are counties with largest share of the homes facing high risk areas, red. Low risk areas, blue. So for those things, you will see all these people move into high risk areas of heat, drought, fire, flood. Only storm a little bit different. So what do you think about this? Why? It's so risky, but people are still moving into. People move there, they won't all become homeless, right? That must be a lot of new construction. And people move there, then they live in houses, and there's a lot of real estate development. What's going wrong or not wrong? Any thoughts? Yeah, motivations. Why?
In that area, I presume they have economic activities, like people move there for job or entertainment activities.
Yeah, okay. Because they have jobs and the economy is strong.
They also have lower income tax or taxation on personal
Lower tax?
Yeah.
That's Florida, right? I heard Florida's very low tax, but But California may be very high, but that's why a factor. And other things? Why people move there? Do you want to move there? Yeah, Bill. Cost of living.
It's better.
Are you sure? Yes, the coastal areas.
Well, Florida compared to, say, the Northeast or California, you can see Texas is a huge area there, like teal.
Yeah, good. So that's all good thing, good answers. So, and another thing is people just enjoy the view, the ocean, the access to the ocean view and all those sand belt. So anyway, that's a fact. And there's a paper. Actually, there's a paper in Nature. And the paper's title is Building Back Bigger. So those places destroyed or get damaged, despite of this, all the regulatory efforts, and hurricane damage is increasing, but if you compare the footprints, and from 2010 to 2017, all this like that, and you will see more buildings there, more development there, the houses become bigger. So that's the market trend of this. So that's a market trend. And then an interesting thing, I think I mentioned this, because later some of you will become developers, right? And the climate belief really plays a role. Because not all the places, these are scientific measures. Those are all scientific measures, but not all people believe in that, right? Because some of them so rare, later disasters, they don't believe. Climate deniers, not climate believers. So then you will say that developers all rush into those areas with low belief in climate change. All else equal, for example, the scientific evidence. The scientific measure of the climate risks of those areas, two neighborhoods, the same climate risk index, but these are deniers neighborhood. These are believers neighborhood. And the developers all go to this place to build. That's the scientific, that's their data shows. So that's very clear, because if they go there here, based on our DID analysis, we know based on your PSAT2, and PSAT2 is wrong in Boston data. So Boston has a relatively high climate belief. But then if you go there, you have discount, you cannot make money. But if for the deniers community, it doesn't matter. So the developers go there. So that's, I talked about some like market trend. People are moving to those areas in spite of the scientific evidence of the climate risk or even some facts. Hurricanes really happened. And then they build up back bigger. And developers understand these are all about individuals or private sector. And then it doesn't mean that they are doing this very recklessly and they don't understand things. They understand. And they understand there's no like we are all passive. We go there and hurricane come and we all die. No. They understand they can do something. That's a climate resiliency investment strategies. So these strategies can, if the developer has the project, they can do something. And also the city government can do something, right? The city or the state, they can invest money in this. And of course, with the large scale, the developer can do little. And mainly for the city governments, so that's why I put this in this session, is the city governments or the state government or the federal government, they can do. But these are all engineering things. I just want to show you, this is a website, you can look into this. Later, if you go to some like coastal areas for your business, maybe you will get to know more. And also, after the midterm, we will have 3 sessions of sustainable design. And we will guest the instructor, Carlos. They will talk about all these things. This build on fill, just how to fill this artificial first fill this area to get out of the water. Then you can build buildings first fill this area. And build on like the keys. So there's like pillars to elevate. And these different things. And make this very can absorb the water and all the things. So this permeable surfaces, you absorb the water, and you make the water can go to the underground, and you preserve white lines and green space and this and that. It's many strategies. But I just want, for now, I'm not going to go into the strategies, but I just want to let you know they all cost money. This all cost money because these are all big things. And then, because they are big things, it's not like a carrot. Carrot is so small, it won't work. It's big thing. It's huge money that government has that invest in those places, make all the change. Make at first water, underwater the ground, then you elevate the entire ground and you infill. Then it's not that easy. It's a huge investment. So that's why not all the cities, they can do that. Not all the developers, they can do that for sure, because they are so small. But even for not all the cities can do that. Remember last session, Ed came in, he talked about that Miami. Remember he mentioned Miami. He said, oh, how can we explain Miami in the last, I forgot how many years, each year they have 30% of housing price increase. If people they really understand why they still keep going to Miami, let's add a question. Miami is a rich city, and Miami city mayor says they are very confident they can adapt to rising seas. Although not everyone is convinced, but the officials have a big, ambitious plan to manage rising water, succeed or fail, so they can live with water. That's Miami. But other towns, small towns, very, very miserable. So I will tell a tale of two cities. It's my tale of two cities. So I will use Miami and North Carolina, small town. I have never been there. I have been to Miami, but I have never been this. Anyone knows this town? No? We got this from media. Fire Bluff. This is a small town. It's a very, very small town and a very relatively poor town. So this is two extremes. That's a tale of two cities. So for Miami, they are rich, and people like there. People all go, tourists, and also people after retirement, maybe they all go there. Then they have a huge strategy, spend so much money for the climate resiliency, do all the things, the strategies. They have an upbeat strategy for living with more water, and they say, no problem. We will do everything we can. And also, why the city is so ambitious, they understand they don't want to lose their economic base. They don't want to lose their people. They don't want this climate thing become a factor that pushing out the buyers and the investors into the city. They want their city to be booming, to be vibrant. So they invest a lot of money. They keep people. Then people still go there. Developers still go there. People still go there. Then they generate tax revenue for the city. So this is a positive feedback loop. So this is very important. This is a feedback loop. So this is the positive feedback loop. The government put money in, build, and the resiliency, remember all these strategies to live with water. And then people still moving in, more people. Business tax go up because then you have a lot of base to tax economics. Then you have more money. Then the government have become richer. Then they continue to invest on this climate resiliency, make this more and more resilient, and people move in, no problem. Another thing is the other end of spectrum. If this small town in North Carolina is a fire bluff. So for this one, we got this from New York Times newspaper. And then the small rural communities now in a very, very bad situation. So this one is a negative feedback loop. The negative feedback loop is the following. The small town at first are already very poor. No tax base, not that easy to handle things. Even the basic public service like schools, healthcare, hard. Now, combined with the hurricane and all the things, they already struggled economically, and then people are leaving, then got hit by 19 hurricanes from 1954 to 2016. 19 hurricanes. Cannot bounce back. Money, no money. Government lose money. Government, no money. Poor government, no money. Cannot do any resilience. All the business run out of business, closed down. People leaving. Then no tax. People are leaving, business are leaving, no tax. Then further no money. Then cannot do anything. Then become ghost city almost. So that's a negative feedback loop. They have a rebuild plan, and they say how we don't want to lose our home. We don't want to lose, this is our community. No plan. But they have no money, and they have a plan, but they cannot fund. Now, Biden side, our President Biden side, Bipartisan Infrastructure Act 2022, allocate so much money from the federal government, 47 billion money for climate resiliency to protect existing infrastructure, all the things. Then this lead to a moral hazard thing. The moral hazard thing, if government say, Biden says, no problem, trust me, I will spend 47 billion on the coastal areas to protect those areas, to build the levee, to build the seawalls, to build all the things. And then the people say, okay, no problem. I will still move to those areas because government will protect me. I believe in government. That's called moral hazard. It's when the individuals, they consider the things, they consider their choices. They don't consider the risks because they understand later the government will save. So that's very similar to this Silicon Valley Bank thing recently, right? That's collapsed. The bank, Silicon Valley, the small bank collapsed. And then the Biden says, we are gonna save all the money. All the people's savings we will pay back. Then later, the individual depositors, they don't consider risk. They just put money in small banks. They understand if the small banks go bankrupt, the government will save. So they become more and more reckless. So that's a problem. That's a moral hazard. So this is a moral hazard issue. If Biden promised to all the people to build back, then all the people will still move into those places. However, this inequality issue again, 47 billion. Which cities will get more money? Which city towns will get less money? Which towns won't get any money? It's totally different. It's not like calculate per capita, how much money per capita like that. Instead, you need to you need to submit a sophisticated proposal to the Congress, to the White House, and then you also need to match. You cannot say money from the federal government. If you get money, your local must match. For poor towns, they cannot match at all. So it's very hard for this town, Fair Bluff town, to get enough money compared to Miami. Miami has so sophisticated officials and do all the things, team, and do things, match, do. That small town cannot. So there's still another inequality thing. Finally, 1 minute is whether this moral hazard thing and the inequality thing really let us think twice. Think twice means whether we really need to save all the places or we retreat. That's called managed retreat. It's not random retreat. So this is managed retreat, like managed, managed, like organized retreat. Not we just flee randomly. So there's some arguments on this. Say, don't always rebuild them, manage the disaster, and move some people together a town, together from one place to another place. Because if random retreat a problem, all the people lost their community, lost their friends, social networks, right? And then now they are thinking about this. The Obama administration and this and that. They are talking about how we can really move the Hurricane Sandy and this and remove a community together into another place. However, this is very controversial. It's very politically controversial, and there's a lot of pros and cons for this managed retreat. So I will leave this as an open question. I have no answer to this, whether you should manage retreat or you should continue to put money here and the people don't care about risk, moral hazard, and still move into Miami and all those places, continue to spend. And who will benefit, who will lose, as the two different types of a tale of two cities? Open question. Thank you so much. That's for today. It's for you. I will take this.